Hi, welcome back. Washington, D.C. police have released new information about the violence that played out on the streets of our nation's capital over the weekend. At least 21 people have been arrested for everything from gun charges to assaults on police and property destruction. The violence only starting after the peaceful rallies in support of President Trump started to wind down after the sun went down. That's when witnesses say Black Lives Matter and Antifa activists showed up and started stirring the pot. Several Trump supporters were attacked in addition to police. These violent scenes were caught on camera by independent journalists, and you didn't see the aftermath on a lot of the established media outlets out there. Let's welcome in now one of the independent reporters who covered the event, Brendan Gutenswager. Some of you may know him as BG on the scene, which is much easier to say than your last name. Brendan, I apologize if I didn't pronounce it correctly, but please correct me if I'm wrong here. But we do appreciate your time. We know you're busy and still traveling. You were at the Stop the Steal March, the Million MAGA March in Washington, D.C. You've also been in places like Kenosha and Minneapolis over the summer. So give us your firsthand account. Where did the violence really start and who instigated most of it?
Yeah, so as you said, it was kind of like an all-day affair there in D.C. It started out with the Million MAGA March. People gathered in Freedom Plaza near the Supreme Court. So that was from the late morning into the early afternoon. During that time, there really wasn't a whole lot of violence or confrontations that we saw. As it got later into the afternoon and Trump supporters started dispersing away from Freedom Plaza and away from the Supreme Court there, as you can see from that video, that's when you started to see more of the clashes with protesters that were gathered. They were on the march through the streets, kind of a couple blocks parallel to where the Trump supporters had been gathered. And then as the supporters started to travel to get back to their hotels or other places in the city, anytime you had like isolated individuals or just like a small group of Trump supporters and a lot of protesters there, they got into different fights and clashes. A lot of times, as you saw from that one video, people would run up and sucker punch people from behind. So it got definitely very violent, especially the area there around Black Lives Matter Plaza. There were a lot of clashes there. Police had to intervene on several occasions, and as you stated earlier, the arrests were made throughout the day.
And when you look at what's happening in Washington, D.C., you describe the situation, it almost sounds as if these activists, the ones we see punching the Trump supporters on the video here, were waiting in ambush for the folks as this wrapped up. Is that what happened?
What it kind of seemed like there was, as they got close to Black Lives Matter Plaza, the activists were going around and trying to find any of the Trump supporters. They were basically going through and trying to hunt them down and see if there were any of them around and push them out of the plaza. So there was a lot of that going on, it seemed. I don't know that they followed people, out of that general area, but anytime they encountered them near Black Lives Matter Plaza or also outside of their hotels, that was another big thing throughout the day, is that Trump supporters, if there were a large number of them at certain hotels, the protesters would march to the hotels and basically just form a line outside there with megaphones chanting against them, following any of them if they left their hotels and just getting in their faces, things like that.
Well, of course, people who've been paying close attention know of you. They know of your videos. We feature them here on Newsmax. Other outlets like the Daily Caller, Breitbart, they also feature these videos. And of course, you have a huge social media following. But a lot of the established media does not report on this stuff in an accurate way. In fact, when you woke up Sunday morning, you were trying to find stories. At least I was trying to find stories on what really happened. And the headlines read, Trump supporters rally in Washington, night of protest turned violent. It doesn't mention anything about the actual instigators of the violence here, the Black Lives Matter and Antifa activists that really were the ones that were stirring up the trouble. So, as an independent journalist, Brandon, when you look at the way this is covered by the establishment media, this is kind of your business plan, right? You serve the need to get this information out there because so much of the media does not want to report what